All right, guys. Welcome to the Wandering Wanderer podcast. Thursday, the 20th of April. Um, I've got a bit of a lineup for you today. Not as prepared as other days, now I have to say. Is my sound working? No, my sound ain't working. No. Sound, are you working? Hello, sound. Okay, here we go. Now we're getting a bit of sound. Okay, so the news has been flying out this morning. I saw there that what do you call him's Substack was the West Awake Substack video that they done with John Waters was deleted off YouTube. So it's on the West Awake Substack. I suggest you go and share it just to the Cassandra effect. Uh, make it spread a bit wider. So I'll get back to that. I see there's a message gone around from various contributors about how they've been dealing with the CBDC in France and what they've been doing, and they've been kind of how would you say, a group of them goes shopping in a cashless supermarket, and they fill up their trolleys with all kinds of accoutrements from around the supermarket, all 50 of them, and they go to the tills. And then when they discover there's no cash, they just say, "Well, okay, leave the trolley there then. See ya, bye bye." And the supermarket is left with the difficult job of putting 50 trolley loads of shopping back up on the shelf. And apparently they've been having quite a bit of success with this tactic. But also, if you were in a petrol station, um, you could fill up your car and only have cash to pay. And when you're going out for dinner into a restaurant, nobody bring their phones, nobody bring credit cards, only bring cash. And it'd make for a much nicer meal, I think, as well. A much nicer time out if no one had their phones. Yeah, and it's just gone on there to talk about just organizing in large groups to affect these supermarkets and these places. It might be an idea to go to the likes of Krispy Kreme with such tactics, and I believe Tesco and Super Value are thinking about it as well. Uh, the idea that the GAA has the ability to decide whether or not we can use cash to interact with them. This is just a narrative that they can set up so that they can develop their narrative about having CBDC. So, we've got to be kind of um, um, sorry, somebody just ringing me out of phone there. I just turned that down. Ring. I got it. Nice. So, yeah, I liked the idea that they had in France. It's pretty cool. That's the way to do things as groups, and just cause mayhem. You've every right to expect that people accept cash when you go to these places, and they have no right to expect you to be a member of a bank. There's no requirement to be a member of a bank to be a functioning member of society. So if you're not a member of a bank, you don't have a card, and it's quite that simple. And it's discrimination. It's discrimination against people who don't believe in banks and usury and that kind of stuff. So you have a grounds for conscientious objection, and the so the other thing that I noticed an article on was from the Chinese police station that was operating in Dublin. Now, this was discovered late last year, and they discovered numerous of these police stations around the world who were dedicated to um, tackling activists against China, foreign nationals from China who've come to this country for safety and security um, as refugees, and they're being targeted by the Chinese on our soil and indeed on the soil of many other sovereign countries. So we have a situation now in Ireland where we have the Chinese police operating on our shores. We have the Chinese Secret Service operating in the Confucius Institutes. and we are building more and more Confucius institutes um, over Ireland, while at the same time, those same Confucius institutes are being thrown out of countries like Australia, America, Germany, France, uh, Denmark, Sweden, Switzerland. All these other countries are throwing the Confucius institutes out of Ireland, and Ireland is building more. Sorry, are throwing Confucius institutes out of their country, whereas Ireland is building more. So we have an entirely incoherent policy against the ally of the people we're at war with. We're at war with Russia now, and China is the ally of Russia. And China has police stations and Confucius institutes on our island. And what are our government going to do about it, other than send Mr. Zelensky more training and more equipment? Wouldn't it be better off using that training and equipment on this island? If these people are so dangerous to sovereignty, if these people are so dangerous to the Ukrainians, why are they not dangerous to Irish people? There's no coherence in where we are at the moment as a nation. They're just incoherent. The government has lost all sense of governance, of proper order, and instead they got so wound up in managing the grift, and so wound up in managing the gravy train and keeping their friends' pockets lined with money, that now they have a politically conflicted situation in our country. They're so dedicated to making money. Like the Chinese own half of all the care homes in Ireland, and we're currently at war with them. You know, the Chinese investment on this island, and we're currently at war with China. It's this is really dangerous stuff, and unless we get accountability for these contradictions in our international policy, we're going to continue to have incompetent, inept politicians running our international policy. It's insanity, and it's deadly dangerous. It's deadly dangerous. We have groups in this country advocating for war with China, with Russia, and we have a government that doesn't know how to put the country onto a wartime footing. It's there saber rattling and making threats and making comments, while at the same time having the back end stuffed with Chinese money. It's absolutely insane. And we as a nation have to do something about this. We have to demand accountability regarding the contradictions that exist in our foreign policy around Ukraine, China, and Russia. It's pretty straightforward, but no one seems to want to tackle it. No politician is bringing it up. And it's because there's so much Chinese money invested in our country. There's so much invested in agriculture, in slaughtering, in chemical companies, in care homes, in property, all over this island. And we're at war with these people. It's absolute insanity where we have found ourselves with this leadership that we call a government. Um, so I noticed as well that Louise Rosengrave has a new article about on her Substack. It's about the vaccine injured again, and a particular young fellow that died from a 14-year-old boy who died. And there's quite a number of vested interests attending this coroner inquest. Louise is doing great work as an independent journalist, and she has produced some of the best accounts of vaccine damage that I've seen, and from a perspective of somebody who would not necessarily be qualified like we are to talk about these things. They're written from the point of view of a victim. They're not written from the point of view of trying to agitate people and get people on their feet. It's actually written from the point of view of the person who is damaged and what they need and what they want for their life. And it's not about scaring people. It's about giving people a voice. And this is something that you can sell to vaccine damaged victims, uh, rather than try and sell them a scary story. You can sell them a voice. You can sell them a platform for their concerns and for their issues, because these people are going to have more and more difficulty as time goes by. they're going to need more and more support as time goes by. So fair play to that'll take me back so as well to earlier on. If you look up my timeline on my Telegram channel, you'll see those what are the notices about the vaccine damage, and it'd be great if you could put them up around your workplace or near places where people congregate, and see if we can get some people to acknowledge their own vaccine damage by reporting it. It would be a big help in this fight. So okay, so I've read through the UN report, um, which was calling for the legalization of pedophilia, and it's very worrying when you know how these documents are constructed and when you know how these documents are worded. It's all about opening the door. It's all about putting um, various legal arguments on the table. Um, it's about, as well, covering the ass of the people who've mutilated children. It's about covering the ass of people who've indoctrinated and groomed children. Um, so this is where it becomes real. It's been a concept up to now, but when the UN are producing documents that require the legalization of pedophilia, this is very real. This is not going away. They assembled a panel of jurists from all over the world, um, very diverse range of jurists looking at this, creating this document. Um, some unusual organizations there and their contributors to these documents. A lot of NGO representatives in this document. And the first thing I noticed about it was how it classifies reproduction in the same place as it categorizes things like poverty and HIV, drug addiction, homelessness. So it sees reproduction as the same problem as HIV. This document is written from the point of view that society has an equal problem with reproduction as it does with HIV, as it does with poverty. So they're basically saying that homelessness, poverty, HIV, drug use, and reproduction are all the same thing. They're all roughly the same. And this document purports that it's going to lay out a framework for judges and lawyers to prosecute these things. But when you read the document, it's very clear that what it's about is setting up a California-style situation, where you have homeless encampments all over the place, where you have defecation. It literally says you can defecate in the street. This is a document produced by the UN and 40 judges from around the country that talks about shitting in the street. What are judges from 40 different countries talking about shitting in the street in a UN document for? What is how did that become the business of European courts and international courts? Pissing and shitting in the street. They're using this as the opening to create a lawless, moralless society where you can sleep where you like, shit where you like, eat where you like, and have sex with who you like. It's Gomorrah, is what it is. It's Beelzebub and Gomorrah. That's what this document is outlining, and I'd encourage all of you to read this document cover to cover, and just get used to the kind of language that these people use. This kind of mealy-mouthed, slimy, you can't nail it down kind of language. It's really thick, is the way I would describe it. and it's no other function other than to set the stage to change how we handle these problems in our society. And it obviously sees reproduction as a threat to the hegemony, and it has included reproduction in with those other problems. And it's recommending that a child who has been groomed by a paedophile, and it's recommended that that child's opinion of their abuse be taken into account when they're sentencing a paedophile, or when they're deciding whether or not to bring charges against a paedophile. So when you consider this document and what's been going on in our schools now with the sex education curriculum, where you can't give consent unless you know what you're talking about. You can't give consent unless you understand. So in order for a minor to give consent to a paedophile, they would have to understand what a blowjob is. They would have to understand what anal sex is. They would have to understand what vaginal sex is. They would have to understand all of these sexual games that they play, these sexual fantasies stuff that they do. And once they've created that understanding in our children, they're then going to say that our children can consent to have sex with adults. So this is the plan coming together, you know. On one side, you have the children being educated with the proclivities of perverted sex, and on the other side, you have the perverts changing the law so that a minor can consent to sex with an adult. So it's not a case that it's about trans rights or anybody's rights. The only rights being excavated here are rights for pedophiles to have sex and abuse your children. They're the only rights getting developed here. There's no other rights getting developed here. And this is what this document is about, is producing consent, manufacturing consent for pedophiles. And it's not about anything else. It's not about being nice or being understanding or being inclusive. It's about changing the law so that minors can consent to sex with adults. And it is fucking, I'm not going to go down there because I just get angry, you know. There's no point in that, like. But so I think that that's probably the greatest the greatest power we have of getting out of the European Union, getting out of the WHO, getting out of the UN, is that they now say it's okay to have sex with children. You know, so I no longer want to be part of any of those organizations. They're obviously globalist organizations dedicated to abusing kids. We've seen how the Biden family now has been caught up in human trafficking. We've seen how Bill Gates is involved with educating children about sex. So you know what's the block here with people? What don't people understand? Powerful men who need a thrill have decided they're going to change the law, and they're going to educate children in order that they can consent to have sex with adults. It's fucking sick. Anybody got anything to say about that report from the UN? I'd be interested in hearing about it. Nobody got fuck all to say. All right, okay. I see Aisling O'Loughlin has been getting a hard time again, and I just wanted to stick up for her. She was saying how, you know, she had been very green behind the ears or wet behind the ears in 2020, I think she said, you know, where the first thing that alerted her was the vaccine passport, and that she kind of went down the slippery slope or down the rabbit hole after that. And you know, it's like it was great to see or great to hear her talk about how her lack of knowledge of the world, and how she had been um, co-opted by narratives, how her independence and how her sovereignty had been stripped away by conditioning to narratives. And she had believed in Richard Branson and Bill Gates, like many of the world, like many of the world, like the people that we're trying to wake up. just like that. And we can't treat people like that who are being honest and who are teaching people. Ashling's experience is going to teach other people like Ashling, and how we react to Ashling's experience and her telling us about it is very important, because that'll set the stage for other people who are in the same place as Ashling, that they might come along on the journey. But if they see us being nasty to Ashling and being aggressive and undermining her and deleting her and cancelling her, you know, um, they're not going to want to come forward. They're going to want to continue with their delusion, and that's basically what's going on. It's cancel culture. It's people are trying to cancel Aisling O'Loughlin for being straight, for being honest, for being decent, for asking questions. And why? Because she's a bad reflection on the movement. That's just collective literalism, you know. There's collectivism and literalism. It's there's a difference between being a Republican and being a collectivist. There's a difference between a nationalist and a collectivist. I don't seek to have the whole country do what I'm doing. I'd like if a few people done what I'm doing. I don't seek to have the whole country going along to my desires, and if they don't fulfill that, then get angry at them. That's not how republics work. That's how communist states work. That's how communism works. Everybody does what the boss says, and if you don't, you go to jail. You know, we all have to do this now. We I don't live in that place. I live in a place where individuals are the ones with power. This is what a republic is. And it is up to each of us as individuals to use our power in the best way we can to ensure the continuation of our nation. What we don't get to do is hide our individual power behind a dream of a white knight coming to save us all. That's you not living up to your power. That's you not living up to what you can do to save this country and save this nation. When we don't use our power because we expect that somebody else is going to come along and save everybody or save everybody else, well, you know, that's hiding your gifts. That's hiding your light under a bushel. It is your expression. It's your free expression that will save this country. It is not your fantasy of a white knight that will save this country. That's not how it works. People have to see each of us taking little actions day after day after day after day before they too will take little actions in order to preserve our country. And jumping on a bandwagon and attacking Aisling O'Loughlin because of her expression, based on the idea that she reflects on all of us, is a fallacy of collectivism, and it gives the media their power. It gives the media the power to say somebody shouted Leo Varadkar is a homosexual, so that means everybody. They represent everybody, because even we say that. We say this individual, Aisling O'Loughlin, represents everybody. So why can't they say that when somebody shouts out paedophile at Leo Varadkar, that doesn't represent everybody? Do you see? So we're doing exactly the same thing as the left, or the crazies that are destroying our country. It's no longer the left, is it? Because the left are coming over. So what we need them to realize is that the solution isn't in the problem. I mean, the problem has been created by leftism and communism and collectivism and socialism, and prioritizing groups and letting one group have power over another group, and not holding elites accountable because they live by a different standards. This is all communism. I keep hearing people talking about capitalism. This is the problem of capitalism. There is no capitalism. Where's the capital? It's a fiat currency. You can't in a capitalist society. You don't get to print money as much of it as you want. You have to have a resource to back it up, or it has no value. That's what capitalism is. There's a lot of capital involved. In our economy, there's no capital involved. They just keep printing money with a printing press, and they don't give a shit. It's not backed by anything. It doesn't mean anything. You can't take your if the euro collapses tomorrow, you can't take your euro to America and exchange it for dollars. It's worthless. It's a worthless piece of paper. That's what it is worth. Nothing. the same as it was the day it was printed. So this is not a capitalist system. This is cronyism with no capital, and that's communism. These people are cronies. They have a separate set of rules for themselves. They keep all the business between each other. There's no capital involved. And 99% of society are an inch from the line of poverty. We're all on the same wages. Minimum wage are within €1 of it. That accounts for 80 to 85% of the workforce. You have a situation where your minimum wage is barely above the dole. Barely above the dole. And now they're talking about giving double dole to artists and bringing in CBDC. It's full on communism. That's what it is. It's full on communism. They control the means of production by controlling the currency that purchases it. You can't purchase this. It doesn't matter if it's made or not. They can control the means. It's the inverse of controlling the means of production. It's controlling your ability to purchase, and therefore controlling the ability to produce. You know, so we're gallivanting straight into communism while complaining about capitalism. You know, there is no capitalism. It hasn't existed since the greenback dollar. That's the last time we had a capitalist system. Fiat currency is not capitalist. There is no capital in fiat currency. So I believe the only solution to all of this is a national currency. Each nation has its own currency. And actually, I'd like to see 3 currencies. It used to be 2. I used to have an idea for 2 currencies, but I'd like to see a third currency now. I had this discussion with somebody recently. I'd like to see 2 currencies from the point of view, one for current expenditure, one for capital expenditure. And when you're young, the proportion of your earnings, let's say you're on a tenner an hour, and there's 2 currencies you get paid in. One is for your capital expenditure, and one is for your current expenditure. So you can spend one in a shop buying your bits and pieces, or in a pub, or wherever you want to spend it. And the other one, the capital currency, is for major investments. It's for building your house. It's for buying your car. It's for putting your kids through college. It's for all these things. And they're exchangeable. You can exchange them. But as you're working, you're earning a proportion of your capital currency and your current currency. So you can, as you're younger, you should be putting more into your capital account than you should be into your current account. And that proportion should change then as you get older. And both of those currencies then are interchangeable with an international currency, a currency that you use outside your borders, a currency that you use to trade, a currency that you use to engage in international commerce, and it's subject to the fluctuations of international markets. And that's the risk is tied up inside that currency. And if you never got involved in international trade, it wouldn't bother you. You know, if you never got involved to trade outside your country, it wouldn't bother you. But if you are involved in trade outside your country, you don't use the national currency that people use for their shopping and they're buying their house. You use a trading currency. So that's one of our ways to solve this problem, is that we keeps cash in our pockets, it keeps money in the bank, and it stabilizes international trading with currency. And we're now at the point where the euro is being, and the dollar are being propped up, and it is only a matter of time before both them are allowed to sink. They need some disaster to happen before that, but they're well on their way to manufacturing it, aren't they? You know, you turn around now and it's the latest bit of news is you know. So anyway, so I'm just looking through some of our colleagues' Telegram channels for content, lads. So you're more than welcome to ring in if you like. I don't know if you guys saw the Fox News interview with what do you call him, Elon Musk. What do you call him, Tucker Carlson interviewed Elon Musk the other day, and it was absolutely jaw dropping. Absolutely jaw dropping. Go and find it on YouTube. It's still there. Um, when what's developing in the States is really encouraging. We can see the sharks are circling the Bidens. And now that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has decided to step up, it really has mixed it up for them. It would be very hard as a Democrat to not vote for a Kennedy on on the on a ballot sheet. But now they're going to be forced into a primary situation where you have Robert F. Kennedy across the stage from Joe Biden. I just can't help imagine how that's going to go. I, you know, Mr. Kennedy has difficulties with his voice, but I've noticed he's using some kind of device on his throat now. To You can see it under his collar. It's like his collar is inflated. It seems to be holding his voice box in or something like that. He has a disease that makes his voice sound funny. Um, but I'm thinking that he's taken his candidacy very seriously when he's taken medical intervention like that, and to see what will this do to the Democrat voter base. There's going to be so many that want to vote for RFK. There's going to be so many that just out of tradition like RFK, and what he has to say is absolutely um, jaw-dropping stuff. Now, he's a bit soft on the environment, but, you know, um, I guess he can't be a master of everything. He's dedicated his life to health, and he's dedicated his life to vaccine damage and what's been going on with the pharma companies. So he can't be an expert in everything. Um, but, we can see it's quite clear now they were caught again there. I think it was the UN climate report, and they were caught faking the stats again. Um, So, when a person like Robert F. Kennedy gets to see the both sides of the picture, I'm sure he'll fall on the right side. You know. Um, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to the primary, which is unfortunately not till next year. But um, the other side of what we're looking at is that there's a IRS whistleblower after coming out stateside. He is actually in charge of the Biden investigation, the tax investigation, and he has already made disclosures internally inside the IRS and complained about how the investigation into the Bidens is biased and it's not doing a proper investigation into them. And now he seeks to bring that information to the Senate, I think, one of the two houses in the States, so they can do an investigation. It'll take him some time to get from where he is to the Senate. It's got a lot of legal difficulties there in that there's protected information in there. But this is pretty damning stuff. It's more trouble for the FBI, and it's more trouble for the IRS. And I can see the Committee on the Weaponization of the government departments. That committee is going to want to have um, interest in this man's information. So that looks like fireworks are going to fly there. Um, I see Jamie Foxx is in trouble. He's gone down, and Damar Hamlin is going back to work soon. Going back playing football. So that's grand. Anybody got anything to say? You're all very quiet, lads. Okay. All right. Okay. Hmm. Well, you guys, I presume, have seen all of this stuff on Telegram. I see there's an article there about white knights on Ashling O'Loughlin. Um, there's a what's going on in France. They say it's about the pensions, but it isn't. You know, it's the same fight that we have. The French are very capable on the street, and it's not about the pension. That's just the straw that broke the camel's back. The French have been putting up with a lot for quite a number of years now. I remember back in 2018, 2019, those guys were really pushing hard, and their movements were deflated, as were all of our movements, deflated by COVID-19, and they were able to take the energy out of the nationalist movements that were sweeping the world, first with Greta Thunberg, and then with the lockdowns and these strategies that they use to deflate and take momentum out. Um, but unfortunately for them, it's only resulting in the pressure building. Um, People's motivation to resolve this problem is increasing and increasing and increasing all the time. And I worry that without outlets for that motivation, um, it could lead to chaos. And we need to provide people outlets for their motivation to change things. We need to show them that there are ways that you can express your dissatisfaction effectively and openly and publicly, and the way you'd like people to be able to express themselves. That platform is there. It just requires a bit of courage. I saw one of the girls there that made a speech in Belfast on last Sunday. Um, she's flying. Her Twitter account has gone bananas. Her social media presence has gone through the roof. People are loving it, and that's the more of that, the better, right? The more people we can get, more ordinary folk we can get to stand up and make a speech like that, the better. Um, we don't need all these talking heads all the time. What we need is people to see ordinary folk getting upset with what's going on and vocalizing it. And people can tell when it's an amateur. People can tell it's genuine when it's an amateur. Whereas they have questions about people they see all the time. But when it's an amateur person, they have no preloaded conception of this person. So it's very, very effective to see women come on like that. She had genuine fears, and as a woman, she's more susceptible to those fears than anybody else. So, it was a very brave thing for her to do, to stand up and expose herself to the risk of being targeted by these lunatics, um, with the blessing of the government and the police force, apparently. But yeah, that was something I think everybody should be doing when you get an opportunity, lads. Get up and say it. Doesn't have to be a big long 5 minute speech. It doesn't have to be a big long motivate everybody. It just has to be real. It has to be true. People have to see your emotion. People have to see why it is that you felt strong enough to go up on that stage and make a speech or make a comment or say something. It was really, really powerful. And it's the kind of platform we've been operating in Galway and other places, where members of the public just walking by, you're more than welcome to use the microphone, provided you're not being rude or nasty. And free speech is free speech if you're prepared to stand behind what you're saying. It's not just good enough to say anything you want. You have to be able to stand behind what you're saying and expect to be asked questions on what you're saying. You know, and it's when that starts to happen, when that cascades, when thousands of people start doing that, that'll be very, very powerful. You know, and we're getting there. We are getting there. Anyway, yeah, lads, I don't really have I don't know, be shooting the breeze now at this point. Not a lot going on today, so anybody have anything they want to say before I shut this down? To do. I'll go to Connor. Hey, Connor, how are you?
Good morning. Oh, well, okay. I've given my location away there. Good afternoon. Good evening, even. You can always rely on me to have something to say. Okay, so I may have come across a bit negative yesterday, so let's try. I'm going to try and be because in everything I do, I fire the negative shots and then I also give something positive, like the two memes I put up on my Telegram yesterday. One was like attacking the echo chamber of Telegram, but then the next meme I did was Irish heroes, and on the Irish heroes I put people who have done Hold the Line, who've gone out and held up placards and reached out to, the passerby in their cars, or people who do real life activism for a nationalist populist party, or for an independent like yourself, Dara. So there is a positive, and what I'm going to suggest, and of course take it with a pinch of salt. It's a suggestion. I'm not ordering anybody. I don't have a gun pointed at your head. It's just anything I say is an invitation for action. That's all it is. Okay. So what my invitation is to, you must know about 100 people or a couple of hundred people that have been involved in real life on the ground action, right? Whether it's at the very lowest level or at the highest level, giving a speech in front of like 200 people in our square, or at the very lowest level, just somebody who's gone around and maybe hasn't even on door to door delivering leaflets, and maybe hasn't even said anything. And there's like levels of participation at all levels. And as you said yourself a couple of weeks or last week, we have an enormous amount of manpower and an enormous job to be done to do. So to sort of like put these sorts of people on a pedestal, the quiet heroes, who deliver leaflets and maybe don't even have the courage to talk to somebody on the doorstep, but they go down one side of the street while you go down the other side of the street. Yeah, that sort of thing, and give them a voice, put them on a pedestal, and hold these sorts of people up as the future, the people that are going to make a difference. To encourage other people, you can be part of that too. And then the normal person, ask them their origin story, how they get into it, what did they feel about, what were their misgivings, how did they overcome those, what misgivings did they still have, what's the next stage for them, so people can start to locate themselves in the quiet, everyday Irish heroes
I
that we
like
all
that.
know.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. It's a pretty good idea. I like that. To give people, there's a huge amount of effort goes in. Like, there's so many people that hand out flyers and go door to door, and they really get no credit. I mean, they get credit at the time. Like, I mean, I'm very grateful when I'm talking to these people, but they're the people making the biggest difference. Um, they're the people going to people's doors who have no idea about any of the topics we talk about, and they're introducing all of the topics to them on a little piece of paper. And it's up to them. It's up to that person then whether they go onto their computer and figure it out after that. But our biggest problem is getting people into the bubble. We there's no hope of getting out of the bubble, because wherever we are, we're going to be in a social media bubble. Maybe Twitter now is changing a bit, sure, but just generally speaking, if your activism involves social media, you're in a bubble, and the objective is to bring people into the bubble. Rather than to try and get out of the bubble, because the algorithm is all about keeping you in the bubble. So leave it working away, doing its thing, and bring people into the bubble, and the algorithm will keep them in the bubble. So that's probably the most important job. Is not. I see a lot of the political parties are trying to get a market share, a segment of the market of votes, rather than trying to increase the market, trying to increase the number of votes available to everybody. And I feel as well that that would be a far better way of us working together, um, than the usual argumentative stuff based around getting a share of the vote. We should be more working together in order to increase the available vote for us all. And that would be far more effective. And let people find their own way. And then as well, you don't have to be as conscientious and as diligent. Um, you can talk to more people rather than try and deliver a more focused message to one person. You can deliver a broad message to thousands of people and let them find their way. Trust them. Give them the evidence and trust them to draw the right conclusion. You don't have any more time than that anyway. If that person isn't open to the evidence, if that person isn't capable of drawing a correct conclusion from their evidence, leave them where they are. They're going to use up your time. They're going to frustrate you, gaslight you. Um, Forget about that. Do not be seeking out confrontation like that. You're far better off having a confrontation with somebody who's open-minded and who's on the fence, But trying to argue your way with somebody who's too frightened to listen is just a complete waste of time. Okay, I see Gwendolyn has her hand up. Hey, Gwendolyn.
Hi, good morning. Well, it's morning here in the States. I'm from California, and it's really nice to meet you. I listen to you every morning.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
excellent. I
Oh,
can.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just wanted to comment regarding Robert Kennedy Jr. Um, I'm very excited as a lifelong Republican, and as is my family. I've followed him kind of right out the get-go when the lockdowns happened and everything, and I got to listen to several of his talks when he would interview people, and then shortly after that, he was censored on everything. So that really opened my mind, and um, I figured out what was going on very quickly. Sorry, I'm kind of nervous because I haven't spoken like this. Um,
You're doing great. You're doing great.
and I have had the privilege to meet him and hear him speak a couple times. Once at a Freedom Fest down in San Diego with Del Bigtree and Dr. Tenpenny. I don't know if you know who they are.
Terry Tenpenny, yeah, and Del Bigtree, yeah.
Yeah, they're awesome. And then also at I live in the Bay Area, which is quite interesting when there's a pandemic. um,
In what way,
Also,
Gwendolyn?
well, they didn't question anything. A lot of folks here just, it's Silicon Valley. They didn't question the masks. They didn't question the vaccines, and so you're kind of is it a salmon going upstream? but it's okay because my family and friends are on the same line as myself, so that's helpful when there's support for all of us with each other.
That's immense. That's immense, all right, I meet so many
Yeah.
people. They're the only
So
person in their family who didn't take it.
I do hear people like that, and it breaks my heart. I have a friend who wasn't invited to her niece's wedding because she wasn't vaccinated. So it's upsetting. So yeah, we protested at the Facebook headquarters, not too far down the road here, with Robert Kennedy. So it's
Fantastic.
it's awesome that he's running. I'm very excited, but I'm a little conflicted now because I'm nervous for him. Clearly, I'm nervous for him, but excited nonetheless. So anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Well, thank you, Gwendolyn. I appreciate what you're saying in that, there's a lot of weight on Mr. Kennedy to deliver a bit of truth to the American society and the American Democrat Party. But I do think that the primary process is going to be very revealing for the American audience. And if he makes it through, which I'm expecting he might, to see himself and Trump on a stage would be, I'd say, redefining America. I
Yes,
imagine. Yeah.
yeah. What's awesome about him is his memory is unbelievable. The dates he puts out, um, the names, the reports. He's a walking encyclopedia. He's just full of, or computer basically. Um,
Mm.
yeah, he really is awesome to hear. And the other thing is, I just, like I said, being in the States here, it's awesome to listen to you every morning. And I will be in Ireland for the first time in June, so I'm very excited.
Well, make sure you give us a shout when you guys come over here, and
Great.
maybe we can show you around.
Thank you. Okay, take care.
Thanks for your contribution, Gwendolyn. Okay, guys. You might notice I'm itching to get out, but if anybody else has got anything they want to say, please do put up your hand, and I will let you speak. Okay, guys. I'm going to leave it at that so for today, and we will see you on Monday. Okay, lads. See you.